What's up, y'all? Thanks for joining us. This is Erik and Derek, Tiger Football Talk. I'm your host, Derek. We are just two Clemson grads who love nothing more than to talk a little more about Clemson football. And thankfully, we finally have something to talk about with the spring game this past weekend. It was an exciting 14-13 win for the white team. DJ and the orange team actually ended up losing, lost an early lead. And so Erik and I got together and we had 5 pivotal questions that we really wanted to ask and discuss on this show. But before we get into those 5 questions and do a deep dive, give me a broad overview, Erik. What were your thoughts of the 2021 spring game?
Oh man, just so excited to have our guys back out there. I know it's only been a few months since we took the field in late December, but man, I'm just so happy to have fans at the game, watch the white versus orange game, televised, have that great ACC network coverage, having Dabo on the field, and getting really behind the scenes action on what's going on. Also, love what Coach Sweeney does here, allowing defensive end coach Lemansky Hall, head coach for the orange team, and wide receiver coach Tyler Grisham, head coach of the white team. And if you guys don't know this, they do a draft style where they actually draft their teams based on the current roster, which I think is a really cool thing. But yeah, like you said, it was pretty much a nail biter. Orange DJ led them 4 for 4 completions with a touchdown to Bo Collins right on that opening drive, and they took a big lead into half, and that white team just stayed with it. Defensive played strong on both sides of the ball, and the white team comes out with the win 14-13. What are you thinking? What are your thoughts on this game?
I'm just happy to see the Tigers take the field again. Excited to see some of these new recruits out there playing the game. About half of the recruits are out there. The other half will come later on. And then Aju, watching him come out, he just looks like a physical specimen, really coming into his own. Loved watching him match up with Andrew Booth and just seeing them go toe to toe for most of the game. But yeah, let's dive into it. There's 5 questions we want to ask and really just discuss as Clemson fans. So the first one, I'm just going to go for it. Let's dive in. What position group impressed you the most in this spring game?
Man, I don't know how you could say more about our defensive line. I mean, again, this was a draft style. Our team is split in half. And I would argue on the white side and the orange side, the D-line dominated this game. But I mean, I think that's an obvious case, right? I mean, you look at the names we've got here. It's Brian Bresee, Miles Murphy, Tyler Davis, Xavier Thomas, KJ Henry, K. Denoff, true freshman coming in playing this game, had a couple really good rushes on the quarterback. And Rook Aurora, listen to that name. He's going to be huge in the defensive line coming up this season. What group impressed you the most?
Yeah, I was about to say, I feel like every single time, like there's a different defensive lineman making a play. I'm going to say the wide receivers. I feel like Clemson fans think that everything was a weakness last year. Our running game was a weakness. Our offensive line was a weakness. Our wide receivers were a weakness. The wide receivers, we had a lot of injuries between Justin Ross and Ngata, and then we had some drafted. But the wide receivers actually ended up coming through for us as a whole. They just weren't as explosive and as deep as we'd like. We got to see Aju going out there. We got to see Ngata healthy, great, pluck him out of the air. And like to throw the tight ends a little bit in there as well because they were catching passes. But as a whole, the wide receiver group I thought really impressed me. I think they're going to be a deep bunch, and we're going to be able to rotate people in. And it's going to be tough if you really look at who we're going to have, especially if Justin Ross does come back and some of these freshmen coming in. I mean, it looks like we're going to be 8 deep and just be able to roll people in and out of there. It's going to be crazy. Okay, so I'm going to switch into the second one, which is who, based off what we've seen, who from this past recruiting class do you expect to see the most playing time this year?
Yeah, this was an interesting question, and we kind of before we kicked off this show, we were talking back and forth on which position and person we thought would fit this the most. I'm going to go with Nathaniel Wiggins. He showed up in a big way as a true freshman in this game, guarding that wide receiver core that you just talked about. And honestly, our depth at DB is going to be one to watch this year, and I think Nate Wiggins steps right into this role. We're going to need him to step up big time, but he had a great spring game.
Yeah, and honestly, if you haven't watched our breakdown of Nate Wiggins as a recruit, go back and watch it because we just talk about the instincts. He's just around the ball and he's just fine. He has a nose for the ball, so couldn't agree more there. I'm going to go Bo Collins. We talked about the connection that him and DJ obviously have from their high school days. We just talked about a very deep wide receiver class, but injuries do happen, and I think their connection is at a certain point where he's going to end up on the field. I don't think he's going to have 800 yards and 6 touchdowns, but I think he'll have a couple hundred yards receiving. I think he'll be a red zone threat. So I would be surprised if he did not work his way onto the field at some point in time this year. But Nate Wiggins, I mean, he was impressive. He was definitely impressive. All right, now let's go into concern a little bit, because this is something that everyone wanted to talk about after the spring games, after Tyson went down. What is your concern level with the QB room right now?
I have huge concerns right now with our QB room. Yeah, we've got DJ, probably going to be the best quarterback in college football this year. But if you look back the past 4 to 5 years, I don't think we've made it through a season without a quarterback injury, or last year with the COVID concern, that we haven't needed our backup quarterbacks to play a huge role. And I don't see how you could not be concerned about this. With Tyson going down, and he had a really good second half of that spring game, we're left with Hunter Helms, basically, who I'm high on, but did not have the best spring game. He's young, he holds onto the ball too long, and we're going to be getting the best out of a lot of these teams that we're going to be playing. I'm very concerned about the QB room at this point.
Yeah, I'm going to say a stat off the top of my head that I've not looked up, but I'm pretty sure 2 of our last 3 regular season losses were due to a backup quarterback coming in. So if you think back to Notre Dame game last year with DJ playing, I think the regular season loss before that was against Pittsburgh. We had Deshaun Watson, but the one before that was Syracuse, where Kelly Bryant went down. And we had to have somebody who didn't even save the program come in, and that's one of the reasons we lost. It's a massive concern. There's no way around it. Dabo Swinney, the entire time during spring game, he kept saying that he wants DJ to be a dual threat quarterback, and he wasn't able to be that last year, because even though he came in and played for Trevor Lawrence, DJ himself was hurt. He wasn't 100%. And so not only is it a worry if DJ goes down, but I'm worried about how it affects the play calling from like a read option standpoint. If they know that if they only have Hunter Helms behind him, no offense to Hunter Helms, if they know that it's him and then it's like Will Spears or punter as third string, I think they're going to be way more cautious with how they use him. Even though going into spring, I think they really wanted to open up and let him run around and do all these different things. I'm not sure if we're going to be afforded that luxury, almost out of fear that if he goes down, what else do we have?
Yeah, and I think we also just had news come in this week that our 4-star QB that we were expecting to come in, Bubba Chandler, he might go to the MLB draft and basically skip college altogether. We knew that he was coming in as a dual sport athlete with baseball and football. If he ends up choosing to go to the MLB draft, that's another huge hit to our QB room.
Yeah, so he's projected like a first-round pick, and listen, you got money on the table. I get it. Like, he wasn't, football's not even his first love. He was going to Clemson in order to play baseball, and now he's got the opportunity to do that at the professional level. But that was a guy who was rising up, the draft boards, and all of a sudden became like a 4-star prospect. Happy to have him in the room, and he may never even end up on campus. But yeah, that's got to be one of the biggest concerns we have going into this year. But all right, let's hop on to the number 4 question I have for you, which is, which position group had the most to prove in the spring game, and did they?
I mean, I think everybody's going to know that the position group that has the most to prove in the spring game and moving forward is our offensive line. And I don't think that they proved it during the spring game, but I will caveat that in saying that our starting O-line was split up between 2 teams. And O-line is probably the hardest position to not be playing with the same people that you're playing with day in and day out. So I will caveat it that they did not look great, but they are very split and they're very young. Marcus Tate coming in as a true freshman, I think he had one of the best spring games as an O-line. Sure. Curious to see how the Clemson coaches decide to use him this year. It looked like they were moving a bunch of guys around throughout the spring game, but that's probably the biggest position group that we need improvement in this year to get our running backs going.
Yeah, Marcus Tate, I was impressed with him. When we broke down his film, I thought he was a little raw, but looking at his footwork, I thought he handled himself really well in the spring game. So very impressed with how he handled himself. I'm going to go on the opposite side. The trenches were just something that was a little bit of a struggle for Clemson. It was exposed against Ohio State. Our offensive line is not usually our strength. That's not what Clemson's known for, but the defensive line is. And on the offensive side, we weren't making holes. On the defensive side, especially against Ohio State, you saw that people were gashing us. We weren't getting pressure. And that's just not the Clemson we know and love. And so watching we mentioned it earlier, watching the defensive linemen, all these different guys rotating in and getting into the backfield was really encouraging. Granted, all you have to do is get a hand on the jersey and it's considered a sack, but really happy with the effort level, the tenacity. There's not a more talented defensive line group in the entire country. There's just not. We have so many 4 and 5 stars, a lot of honors on those lines, a lot of All-American nominations on that defensive line. It should be the best group in the entire country. They're already comparing it to the Power Rangers. I don't want to get there yet because that was such a dominant, impressive line. But I'm going to say the defensive line came in and they did prove it to me just based on the performance that they had as a whole. I'm going to switch to what I think is going to be the most difficult question to kind of project out. We're so far away from the actual season. But as a Clemson fan watching their football team in 2021, this upcoming fall, what identity shift will Clemson fans be seeing compared to maybe last year or the last few years?
Yeah, I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm probably not correct on this, but I hope that I am. And my prediction is that we're going to see more of a pro-style offense. I think DJ, as a pro-style quarterback that likes to sit in a pocket and has an arm for days, I think we're going to see, and with a wide receiver room as big as it is and a running back room as big as it is, I want to see more routes. I want to see more tight end play. I want to see more getting the ball to our playmakers. And I think we can do that without getting DJ in trouble with these read option plays. During the spring game, we were seeing a lot of the read option. I don't even know why, because it was two-hand touch on the quarterback, so it didn't make a lot of sense. But seeing that makes me believe that they're still going to keep that in the playbook. But with the talent that we have around on the wide receivers, the tight ends, the running backs, and on and on and on and on, I don't know why we put DJ at risk when we don't need to.
I agree, and we have to go on a limb. It's hard to project anything for the fall, but just based off of the talent we have and what we saw in the spring game, I will agree with you. I'm going to really focus on the tight ends. We saw Jalen Lay. We saw Allen. We have a really good tight end group, and we said this last year, and they were used sparingly. I think we're still trying to figure out how to really incorporate them. I'm going to go on a limb and say that DJ, because we've changed the quarterback, DJ will use his tight ends more, especially on third down. There was a series or two there where he was really locking in on Jalen Lay. And I think ever since Hunter Renfrow left, we have not had that third down target presence. I'm not saying it's Jalen Lay. I'm just saying it's going to be a tight end that he is going to be looking at more and more in that third and short, 30 and medium range. So I think we'll see the tight end group just used a little bit more.
Yeah, and I'll throw out there real quick that Brandon was not out. Galloway was not out on the field. So that's why we saw a lot more of Lay. But having Galloway as tight end, big third down threat right there for sure.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Well, those were the main questions that we wanted to get through. I think between the quarterback room, what's going to be changing, recruiting class, a lot of exciting things to be looking at after this 2021, spring game. It sucks because now there's a big lull. There's just going to be summer practices, and then, Georgia game is going to be here right around the corner. But we're going to continue putting out different videos from here on out, updating it with a different team and different things to look at. So be sure to be checking back. Make sure to like and subscribe. Help us out. Help out with our content. Erik, you got anything else you want to say?
Hey, man, go Tigers. Can't wait for next season. Get vaccinated.
Go Tigers.